without and peaceful, free from fabrications. So tomorrow, the hitting the essence in 3 words will be done in the morning, and then in the afternoon we'll have the public talk. So the hitting the essence in 3 words will not take much time. So tomorrow we may start around 9:30. So perhaps we can start at 10 o'clock. So we'll start tomorrow's morning teaching at 10 o'clock and then finish by around 11:30. So we'll have teaching for 1.5 hours. That would do. And so Yongde Rinpoche will have free time tomorrow afternoon because there's no review session. There will be the public talk.
On the translation.
How about the translations? How is it going?
Okay. Yeah.
So all of us, the 7 billion people on this planet, all want happiness and do not want suffering. So not only human beings, but everyone who has a feeling of pain and pleasure want happiness and not suffering. So the happiness which we want and suffering we do not want are 2 kinds. One is physical and the other one is mental. So the physical ones also are related with those of the sensorial experiences of pain and pleasure. And then the mental pain and pleasure are related with our mental consciousness. So Indian knowledge or Indian wisdom tradition or the religious traditions mainly base themselves on the their practices on using the mental consciousness. So even the non-Buddhist traditions have practices whereby they know that because they know that the negative emotions that fall within the desire realm cause the problems. Therefore, they try to overcome it and try to attain the higher planes of existence. And then with regard to Buddhism, as I mentioned yesterday, we have the teachings on the 4 Noble Truths, and then those of the 37 Aids to Enlightenment. And this, whether it's Pali tradition or the Sanskrit tradition, our aim is that of the liberation. In the Sanskrit tradition, there is mention of the dual obscurations, the dual obscuration, which by overcoming which we aim to reach the omniscient state, or which is called the omniscient state of Buddhahood, which is called the non-abiding enlightenment or liberation. So basically we have the Buddha nature within ourselves, this element of the essence of Buddhahood. According to the second turning of the wheel of Dharma, this is understood in terms of the emptiness of the mind, which is afflicted. And which has not overcome the afflictive, the stains or the defilements. And then in the third turning of the wheel of Dharma, it is understood in terms of this Buddha nature, which is the clear light, luminosity of the mind. And with regard to the resultant Buddhahood, there is the resultant Buddha bodies are twofold, those of the compounded and uncompounded phenomena. And Master Nagarjuna in his text mentions in the 60 verses of reasoning, it mentions, may through this virtue may sentient beings complete the two accumulations, and through that may they attain the two Buddha bodies. So according to the Sanskrit tradition, the Buddha Shakyamuni, who appeared in the world, was a supreme Nirmanakaya form of Buddha, which is said to arise from that of Sambhogakaya form of Buddha. And Sambhogakaya form of Buddha itself arises or appears from within that of the Dharmakaya, particularly that of the Jnanakaya, which is the wisdom Dharmakaya. And there is also within that the Dharmakaya, the nature body, Swabhavikakaya. And Swabhavikakaya comprises those of the natural liberation or natural purity, which refers to the emptiness of the mind. And through one's familiarization on the meditation on the emptiness of one's mind, one is able to eliminate all the defilements from within one's mind. And therefore, on the basis of this natural dharma, the natural dharmakaya, then that of the emptiness of the mind, then we are said to be able to attain the state whereby we the purified state of the mind of all the defilements. And from this, the Jnanakaya, the wisdom truth body, arises Sambhogakaya. And Sambhogakaya is accessible only to beings of higher realization, like Arya beings. And then from there arises those Nirmanakaya. So in other words, we have four Buddha bodies. One comes under the category of compounded phenomena, and other like the emptiness of the mind of the Buddha, and also the purified state. The very purified state are uncompounded, whereas the compounded Buddha bodies arises from that of the Buddha nature, as in the form of the Buddha nature in the form of the clear light nature of the mind. And so as long as we have this luminous or the awareness and clarity nature of the mind, we have the potential for the four Buddha bodies. So this is what we call the Buddha nature. So Buddha nature is thought along that line. So every being who has this clarity of mind, sentient beings, are said to have that potential for attaining the four Buddha bodies, and including the compounded Buddha bodies. And so the merit that we accumulate, the accumulation of merit leads to the attainment of the form body. And then the wisdom accumulation leads to that of the Dharmakaya. So these two resultant states, in other words, the form body and the wisdom, the Dharmakaya, come about through those of the two means. One is called the means, and the other wisdom. And with regards to the these two, skillful or the means and the wisdom, also is dependent on and related to the two truths. So we talk about the empty nature of the dependent objects. And so on the understanding that things come through dependence, that they are like illusion, therefore on the conventional level, without doing any kind of critical analysis into the final nature of things, and when we talk about the ordinary things, then on the basis of that understanding and insight into the conventional reality of things, we accumulate that of the merit. And so, such as that of those of the understanding of suffering, and then nature of suffering of samsara, on the basis of which we generate or cultivate compassion, and so forth. And so these accumulations through compassion and so forth are called merits. So the person, the wish to liberate other sentient beings from suffering, free other sentient beings from suffering, and also the person who works for that do exist. And so conventionally they do exist, but when you actually delve into the final nature of them, how they exist, then you cannot find anything as having any independent objective existence. Therefore, we talk about emptiness. So on the ontological level, we have the two truths. As Master Nagarjuna says, the Buddha's teachings of the Buddha are dependent on the two truths, which are the conventional and the ultimate. So, of course, and other texts also mention the two truths, and even the non-Buddhist traditions talk about the two truths. For example, the Sankhya traditions talks about the pradhan, which is the primal factor, and the conscious being are called ultimate reality, and then the rest of the other 23 elements are called conventional. And so, such like this, other non-Buddhist traditions also talk about the two truths, and then all the four Buddhist philosophical schools do talk about the two truths, whereas their interpretation of the two truths are different. So with regard to emptiness, there are different degrees of understanding, interpretation and understanding amongst these four philosophical schools. With regard to selflessness, the Vaibhashikas and Sautrantikas do not talk about emptiness or selflessness of phenomena, but selflessness of persons. So in other words, what is mentioned is that we do not take what appears as reality, but when you actually go deeper into how things exist, then you find that of the ultimate truth. And so there are. So the form body of a Buddha is achieved through the practices which are related to the conventionalities of things, and then that of the Dharmakaya is attained or achieved through relation to that of the ultimate reality. So in other words, we also can talk about the reality as in the ground reality, which is, and then the progression along the path, and then through that, the attainment of the two Buddha bodies, the Dharmakaya and the Rupakaya. And so, to accumulate merit, for the accumulation of merit, the main factor is that of the Bodhichitta, this altruistic spirit of enlightenment. So generally speaking, this wish and the desire to serve or benefit others, and the actions that ensue from them are considered wholesome actions, whereas actions and the motivations, and then also those of the unwholesome and those actions and the motivation which bring about suffering to others are considered negative actions. And so we have these two, the positive and the negative actions. And generally speaking, the Buddha's teaching is summed up in this verse, which says, commit no evil, cultivate a wealth of virtue, to thoroughly tame your mind, and this is teaching of the Buddha. So those actions which help others are virtuous, and those actions which harm others are negative. And therefore, these two actions, whether they are positive or negative, come about through taming and disciplining one's mind. Therefore, the verse says, tame your mind thoroughly. So being attached to others, being angry, and then jealousy, and so forth. These are negative. And these actions, negative actions, actually arise when you have this selfish, self-centered attitude. Whereas to counter that, you should think about the benefits and the advantages of cherishing others over oneself, and the disadvantages of cherishing oneself alone. And so, of the 17 Nalanda masters, Master Shantideva wrote the Bodhisattva Charyavatara and Shiksha Samuchaya, practices, compendium of practices, and the Bodhisattva's way of life. And so the Bodhisattva way of life especially is very powerful text for the practice of patience, for example, in the 6th chapter, and how to see the disadvantage or the shortcomings of anger and so forth in great detail, explained in great detail. And then in the 8th chapter, there is explanation of the equaling and exchanging self and others, showing the disadvantages of self-cherishing attitude and the advantage of the cherishing others more than oneself. And then I always say that 9th chapter is quite tough of Shantideva's text. But the 6th chapter and the 8th chapter, it could even be studied by those who do not have any belief in religion, because it can help the roar on the anger and negative emotions that we usually indulge in to ameliorate it. So whether Christian practitioners or Jewish practitioners or Muslim practitioners or other practitioners of other religions, we could consider the practice of patience and its good qualities as something which is common practice to all of us. And then also, with regard to altruism, this can also cover all religious traditions, are shared with all religious traditions. So even if you are not, you are a non-believer, if you have a peace of mind, you'll have happiness. And if you are disturbed totally, then you will not have happiness. And therefore, you should know, just sitting, in somewhere, as if you're doing meditation, will not help. Thoughtlessness meditation will not really help. You need to see the pros and cons of anger and those factors which disturb your peace of mind and those which bring about the peace of mind. And therefore, it's very important to study these. So here we are concerned with Bodhichitta, So we could use verses like the taking refuge and Bodhichitta, generating Bodhichitta. Just by reciting them, of course, we will not have the experience of Bodhichitta as such, but you need to familiarize, habituate your mind with these principles over months, years, decades, and then you'll see some transformation within yourself. So, of course, since childhood, I had interest in Bodhichitta, thinking about, sacrificing one's own happiness for the benefit of others and cherishing others over oneself. I found very difficult. But after receiving teaching on the Bodhisattva Charyavatara, then I slowly, when I reflected on these practices that I mentioned in it, then I could really see that they are really powerful. And then I could even go to the length of making this sincere prayer, as long as sentient beings remain and so forth. And this needs, in order to be able to do this kind of practice, you need to familiarize your mind with the practices sincerely. So there are two systems or traditions by which you could generate and cultivate bodhicitta. One is the sevenfold cause and effect instruction, and then the other is equaling and exchanging self and others. And then through your practice, when you actually experience genuine bodhicitta within yourself, uncontrived, genuine, spontaneous bodhicitta within yourself, that is the path of accumulation of the Mahayana path, within which there are three, which are called the small, the medium, and the great in degrees. And if you could take bodhicitta through a ceremony with someone like your Lama as a witness, and also the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas as your witness, as you take this, go through this ceremony, you will actually find it more inspiring and encouraging for yourself. So we'll do the so the extensive ceremony for the bodhicitta is found in Master Asanga's Bodhisattva Bhumi, particularly the chapter on moral ethics. And then in Bodhisattva Charyavatara also there is the mention of, there is the ceremony for bodhicitta. But today, as you find in this book, we'll follow what is given in this book, which is the verse which says, with the wish to free all sentient beings. And so in the morality chapter in Bodhisattva Bhumi, there is this mention of going through the ceremony for generating aspiring bodhicitta. And so for that, we need to imagine and visualize the merit fields. So here we have the Buddha, and then the those of the masters, like the 17 Nalanda masters, as you can see behind me. So in the past in Tibet, we used to have a prayer for the masters known as 6 ornaments and 2 supreme masters. But they do not include some of the great masters that are included in the 17 Nalanda masters, such as those of Buddha Palita, Bhaviveka, Chandrakirti, then Vimukti Sena, and so forth. So regarding the writings of these masters, the 17 Nalanda masters, we study the classic texts written by them. So regarding Buddha Palita, for example, Master Buddha Palita writes, if things were to have any essential existence in and of themselves, what is the need for the designation through dependence? You can just suffice with the things. So because things lack any essential intrinsic existence, there's no need for dependent origination. Why do we need to say that things are dependently designated? But things are designated, although they are designated, you cannot, when you do critical analysis and examination into them, you cannot find anything that you can point as being this and that in and of themselves. And therefore, to study the Madhyamaka tradition, Buddha Palita commentary is very good. And then also Bhaviveka's wisdom, lamp of wisdom, where he raises points that are against criticism, against when he critiques those some points of the Buddha Palita, and then later Master Chandrakirti came and then actually refuted the position of Bhaviveka, and therefore he made very clear how the things could not have any, very precisely how things cannot be have any kind of objective existence. So he made this clear distinction between what constitutes objective existence and non-objective existence. And therefore, these masters are great. And then in the regarding commentaries on Prajnaparamita Sutras, we have Vimukti Sena, Haribhadra, and Vimukti Sena and Haribhadra's commentaries. And so regarding, since we have these writings of these masters, I thought that they could also be included amongst the Nalanda masters to whom we pray. And therefore, I wrote the praise to the 17 Nalanda masters, and also I commissioned the painting, the Tsongkhapa painting of these 17 Nalanda masters, which you see behind me. So with regards to the general approach of the teaching of the Buddha, the writings of these 17 masters, 17 Nalanda masters, become the classic texts for us to study. So, of course, Saraha and the others also appeared as great Mahasiddhas, but their writings do not have much to do with the general approach of the teaching, but only that of the specifically tailored approach. And therefore, if you really want to learn and understand the general approach of the teaching of the Buddha, you should study the writings of these masters. It's not enough just to say that I'm a Buddhist and then say that they recite the verse of taking refuge and recite some mantras. As Master Vasubandhu says, the teaching of the Buddha is twofold. One is the scriptural, long or agamas, and the transmission, and then those of the realizations. And to preserve them, there is only the only method to do that is through study and practice. And therefore, he says he excludes any other means by saying only, saying there's the study and the practice are the only means to preserve the scriptural teachings and the realizational teachings. And therefore, you could study Buddhism not in a grand kind of monastery, but also you can have a very poor house where you can also do study of the writings of these masters. So these writings, in order for you to really develop faith based on reasoning and understanding, you really need to be critical. You need to see the position of others, how to refute them, and also hold one's own position, and also rebut those of the criticisms to your position. And therefore, we have the study of logic and reasoning, epistemological texts written by Dignaga and Dharmakirti as well. And so you see all the 17 Nalanda masters have red hats. In India, I don't think they used to have any hats, wear any hats. Because if it were to be such an important feature or such an important thing for monks, then it should be included amongst the 13 objects that the monks are allowed to keep. And so there's detailed mention of the 13 objects that a monk should keep, but a hat is not mentioned. But I think Shandarakshita came to Tibet and felt cold. And in the 13 objects for monks, this shirt that I'm wearing also is not included. But it is said that Shandarakshita in Tibet when he was in Tibet, felt cold, and he actually took off his the monk's cushion, the mattress, and put it on his head, and therefore the side of the cushion, which has like ear kind of a shape, actually was hanging in front, and therefore, then in memory of that, it is mentioned that the shirt Tibetan monks wear was devised. And therefore, because of Tibet's climatic condition, cold climatic condition, Tibetans wore a hat. Tibetan Lamas wore hat, and it seems that we also made the fashion of putting the hats on Master Shandarakshita and also other 17 Nalanda masters. And Master Nagarjuna does not have any hat, but the hoofs of the snakes. So I usually make a joke out of it, saying that because Master Nagarjuna had a shaven head, and therefore when the hooves of the snakes are there, because they could actually be used to devour the bees or the bugs that may come around. And so in Tibet, we have the system of doing intensive, extensive study of the teachings of the Buddha, and therefore there's extensive use of logic following Dignaga and Dharmakirti. And in Tibet, because of their tradition of studying logic, Master Sakya Pandita, Gunga Gelsen, wrote The Treasury of Logic. And also those of the Kadam masters like Chaba Choja Sengye and so forth wrote text on logic. And therefore, it seems today, amongst all the Buddhist countries, only Tibet has the tradition of logic, to studying logic and reasoning. So amongst the 17 Nalanda masters, amidst them we have Buddha Shakyamuni, and then you should also imagine around him the 17 Nalanda masters. If it is said that where there is this strong faith and devotion, there is the Buddhas appear there or come there. And so we do not have to say that these masters were great in the past, but even even today we have their writings that we can read and study. It's not like reading some kind of a storybook or some kind of a history, but these writings really help transform your mind. So the Jataka tales and other writings may have some stories, but you may find wonderful. But these writings of these masters, like Nagarjuna, like Nagarjuna's Madhyamaka Karika and its commentaries, if you really study them, there's so much to study, the purpose of which is to transform your mind. So, and in other words, to reduce this grasping at some true existence, independent existence in things, thereby also reducing the attachment, anger, and other negative emotions. As Aryadeva says, just as the physical faculty permeates all other faculties, likewise, ignorance permeates all negative emotions, the afflictive emotions. For example, the eye faculty, sense faculty, nose sense faculty, and other sense faculties do not permeate or pervade all the rest of the sensory faculties, but the physical faculties permeates it, all of them. And similarly, ignorance permeates all afflictive emotions. And therefore, he says, the Ayadeva says, all negative emotions can be destroyed by destroying this ignorance. So by destroying this ignorance, all the other negative emotions will be destroyed. And also in the 400 verses, the commentary to it by Chandrakirti, it mentions all negative emotions are dependent on ignorance, and also they are concomitant with ignorance. So the grosser forms of negative emotions have their own different aspects, and they are not concomitant with this ignorance, but they arise from the ignorance. But the subtler negative emotions go together with the ignorance. It mentions, this commentary mentions, it actually goes inseparably with it. So there are negative emotions which arise from ignorance, and there are those which are together with it. So what is said in these texts could be actually checked within yourself, and you will find the corroboration from your experience. So by destroying ignorance, as it is said, all the rest of the negative emotions will be destroyed. So all the practices are, the main practice to overcome this ignorance, destroy the ignorance, is that of the understanding of selflessness, emptiness. So these writings of the masters like Nagarjuna, such as Mula Madhyamaka Karika, Ratnavali, and so forth, if you read them over and over again and really reflect on these teachings, you'll actually feel that Master Nagarjuna is right here with you, kind of. And therefore, when you study these texts, you really become close. You feel close to these masters. And so Buddhism in general, and particularly the Nalanda tradition, which is based on their reasoning and logic, and therefore we have these masters who have written these texts that we could study. And even today, in the 21st century, if you have someone who can explain the Nalanda tradition precisely, then even the scientists are attracted to this tradition. So these are thanks to these masters. We're not talking about them showing some kind of a miracle, going underground and so forth, but we have their writings which will actually open our eyes to the teaching of the Buddha. So usually I say that these 17 Nalanda masters were Nalanda professors. So if you use the term saint, of course it has some religious connotation, but professor has the connotation of learned scholarship. And so imagine them right in front of you, these 17 Nalanda masters, not just the portrait or the image, but and so around the Buddha, you could also imagine Maitreya, Manjushri, and others who are called the 8 close Bodhisattva disciples of the Buddha around the Buddha. And then Master Saraha and so forth, who belong to the set of teachings that are called the specifically tailored teaching for individuals. These great great Mahasiddhas, the great realized masters, of course, which also includes masters like Nagarjuna and others who actually practice the crazy wisdom. So imagine them as well, and then also from the Tibetan traditions, the masters like those of the King Tuzong Detsen, Guru Padmasambhava, and Master Chandarakshita, and so forth. And then the 25 disciples, and then those of the Longchen Rabjapa and so forth, as well as the Sakya tradition masters, the 5 patriarchs and so forth, and then those of the Kagyu tradition, Marpa, Milarepa, and Gampopa, and the masters. From them down, we have the 4 major and 8 minor Kagyu traditions, the masters of them, and then the Kadam tradition, which are threefold. Those of the Kadam, the textual tradition, the Lamrim and Pith instruction and the traditions, and then the Master Tsongkhapa and his 8 close disciples and others, the followers. And then you could also imagine your own masters from whom you have received the teachings, your root and the lineage masters. So this is the visualization of the merit field. And so having done that, you could say those of the there is this short prayer given in this text, just the verse touching on the 7 limbs. So have a very clear visualization of these objects of refuge, beginning with the Buddha, Shakyamuni, Buddha, and the masters, like those of the 8 Bodhisattvas, the 17 Nalanda masters, and then the 80 Buddhist Mahasiddhas, and so forth. And so have a very clear visualization of them, and let's say this prayer. Reverently I prostrate with my body. It's not given. So the practices are like prostration, and then making offering, rejoicing, and then also confession, and then requesting the Buddhas to live long and not to pass away, and requesting them to turn the wheel of Dharma. May all the virtues that I collect through them, I dedicate for the highest enlightenment. So Buddhas have worked for eons to benefit sentient beings. So the main practice that they have done to engage in the practices was that of Bodhichitta. As Shantideva says, Bodhichitta is that factor, that thing which the Buddhas have found to be the factor that benefit other sentient beings. For eons and eons, when they reflected what is the best means, they found it to be the Bodhichitta. And then with regard to our pain and pleasure, Master Shantideva says, all joys and happiness in the world come from the cherishing others, thinking of wishing others to be happy, and all suffering come from wishing oneself alone to be happy. And so, if you look at the world today, there is all kinds of abuse, killing, murder, deception, and hypocrisy, and so forth. These are all because of this self-cherishing attitude, and you disregard the well-being of others. So all these problems created by human beings are rooted in, are the faults of the self-cherishing attitude. Whereas we have the nurses and doctors helping sick people, and also parents helping their own children. So in other words, so these and all other things with which we care about others are because of cherishing others over oneself. So cherishing oneself alone, leave alone attaining Buddhahood, even in this life, the whole world will be unhappy. Whereas if you have this self-cherishing others, not to mention reaching Buddhahood, but even temporarily in this life also, you will have happiness. So Shantideva says, if you do not exchange your own joys and happiness with the suffering of others, leave alone attaining Buddhahood. Even in samsara, you will not have happiness. So when you think along these lines and really reflect deeply, you'll see the disadvantage of the self-cherishing attitude and the advantage of the cherishing others. And so, whether you are a believer or not, it doesn't matter. And in this very life, we could really see the greater you are altruistic, the greater altruistic you are. I mean, the greater friends you have, those people who like you are more. And then you are happy, others are happy. If you think only about yourself, you will not have friends. You'll not be happy. Even if you may have riches, if you may be wealth, and you may have power and authority, but people may come and make friends with you, but not really as sincere friends. And so self-cherishing attitude itself keeps you away from others. You are left alone. So biologically, we have the seed for love and compassion. And when others show kindness to you, you like it. And if others shirk you, you are not happy, because we are social animals. We are dependent on others in the community. And therefore, if you could cherish others over oneself, disregarding one's own well-being and so forth, that would be the source of happiness. And because we have been so obsessed with self-cherishing attitude, look at our situation today. And so we have created all kinds of negative, non-meritorious actions which lead us to this kind of existence, suffering, and so forth, whereas cherishing others over oneself lead us to higher rebirth and then enlightenment and so forth. So if you actually practice restraint, killing, and stealing, and so forth, thinking that, oh, if I do this, I would suffer, and then that's not so powerful. But if you, when you say that I restrain from these negative actions because they harm others, you have this sense of caring for others, and therefore it's much more powerful. So others are, you are a single person, and others are infinite. And therefore, if you are able to engage in practices whereby you avoid negative actions and actually adopt and practice the positive ones, so that you think that others are going to be benefited, that's much more powerful. And so in the 8th chapter of Bodhisattva Charya Avatara by Shantideva, there you really find these practices, powerful practices. Even if you do not believe in past and future lives, if you read the 6th chapter on patience and the 8th chapter on concentration, you will really find that, oh, this is really true, this is really true. So the cherishing others is the source of all your temporary as well as the ultimate lasting goal of happiness. And cherishing oneself is the source of all unwanted things. And therefore, having found this human life now and having met with the teaching of the Buddha, and that we have the opportunity to study the texts written by these great Nalanda masters, and which, of course, are introduced to you by the Tibetan masters. And therefore, this is a very opportune time for us. We have the freedom and the endowments to engage in these spiritual practices. At such a time, when do you really want to, when would you actually practice if you're not now? And therefore, think about bodhicitta, and now think that you are going to generate bodhicitta in front of the master and those of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. And we are not doing just on one-on-one individual kind of level, but many people are gathered here together and are doing it collectively in front of the Buddha. And so we'll do this ceremony for bodhicitta. So we have done the 7-limb practice. And the actual text that we are going to use is, with a wish to free all sentient beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. So those who are on chair, you just be seated there, but those who are on the stage, please kneel on your right knee. If you have bad knees, it doesn't matter, just be seated. So please, so you need to repeat these, or you may just recite these in your own language. So with a wish to free all sentient beings, motivated by this thought, you are saying that you are taking refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and also will generate the full awakening mind. Not saying that if you do that, you will be freed from some fearful existence, but in order to reach Buddhahood, you take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. That's the motivation. And then it says, enthused by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence. So mainly it's complemented by that of the wisdom realizing emptiness. You are motivated to generate that of bodhicitta because you see that there is a possibility to eliminate all the defilements from within the mind streams of all sentient beings. And therefore, in order to liberate all sentient beings, you motivate to yourself to become a Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. With the wish to free all sentient beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Enthused by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the bind for full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. With the wish to free all sentient beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Enthused by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind for full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. So when you say it for the third time from the depths of your heart, think that in order to lead all sentient beings across the expanse of space, I will. To lead them to Buddhahood, the state of omniscience. And in order to be able to do that, I will seek enlightenment for the benefit of them. With a wish to free all sentient beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Enthused by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind for full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. Ladu, the O sublime precious Bodhichitta, may it arise in those in whom it has not arisen. May it never decline where it has arisen, but go on increasing further and further. It's given there. As long as space. As long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, may I too remain to dispel the misery of the transmigratory beings. Today my life has borne fruit. So we are done with the Bodhichitta ceremony, and now we'll continue the teaching of the stages of meditation. So at the end of the page 101 in English, we have this on the left column, that the conventional bodhicitta should be cultivated in the process similar to that described in the chapter on moral ethics in the Bodhisattva Bhumi, generating this mind by taking bodhisattva vows before a master who abides by the bodhisattva precepts. And so, regarding myself, as I daily take the bodhisattva vows as well as tantric vows, I did this morning also, take the bodhisattva vow and tantric vow and so forth. And so, after generating the conventional awakening mind of Bodhichitta, endeavor to cultivate the ultimate awakening of the mind of Bodhichitta. The ultimate Bodhichitta is transcendental and free from all elaborations. It is extremely clear that the object of ultimate state is unwavering, like a butter lamp, undisturbed by the wind. So this is achieved through constant and respectful familiarity with the yoga of calm abiding meditation and special insight over a long period of time. This talks about the combination of these two, the meditative absorption, calm abiding, and insight. The unraveling of thoughts, Sutra says, O Maitreya, you must know that all the virtuous dharmas of hearers, bodhisattvas or tathagatas, whether worldly or transcendental, are the fruits of the calm abiding meditation and special insight. So here, calm abiding refers to that of the focusing meditation, and special insight refers to the analytical meditation. And so all the fruits of the bodhisattvas and so forth are the results of these two, the analytical and the contemplating or this focusing meditation. concentration meditation. Since all kinds of concentrations can be included in these two, all yogis must at all times seek calm abiding meditation and special insight. Again, the unraveling of the thoughts says the Buddha has said, it must be known that the teachings of various types of concentration sought by hearers, bodhisattvas, tathagatas, are all contained in calm abiding meditation, especially insight. Yogis cannot eliminate mental excursion merely by familiarizing themselves with calm abiding alone. It will only suppress the disturbing emotions and delusions temporarily. Without the light of wisdom, the latent potentials of disturbing emotions cannot be thoroughly destroyed, and therefore their complete destruction will not be possible. For this reason, the unraveling of the Thought Sutra says, concentration. And so here, concentration and calm abiding are something which is shared with non-Buddhist traditions. Because through the practice of single-pointed concentration, the non-Buddhists also are able to attain those of the four realms within the four planes of existence within the form realm, and then the four planes of existence within those of the formless realms. So within the four concentration planes, there are also it subsumes 16 or 17 different planes of existence. And so, beginning with those of the gross forms of desire, RAM, afflictive emotions, they are actually, there are practices to calm them down by seeing that the desire RAM experiences are grosser compared to the higher RAM experiences. And therefore, in this way, they make this kind of discrimination and then develop the higher planes, concentrations of higher planes of existence. So can suppress the disturbing emotions properly and wisdom, and can thoroughly destroy the latent potency. The King of Concentration Sutra also says, even if you meditate with single-pointed concentration, you will not destroy the misconception of self, and your disturbing emotions will disturb you again. This is like Udraka's single-pointed meditation, when the selflessness of phenomena is examined specifically, and the meditations are performed on the basis of that analysis. That is the cause of the resultant liberation. No other cause can bring peace. And so even the non-Buddhist tradition practitioners have the experience of developing that of some calm abiding by just seeing the gross forms, the grossness of the desire RAM experiences, and seeing the subtlety of the formless realms and so forth. And so even if they may attain higher forms of existence, they could still fall down. And so it says this is like Udraka's single-pointed concentration. And therefore, what can actually overcome our negative emotions, and particularly that of the grasping at true existence in things and self and events, it is that of the wisdom of selflessness. And so when you are able to realize selflessness, this will counter the grasping at self, independent self, and this helps to overcome all the negative emotions as well, because the realization of selflessness goes diametrically counter to the grasping at self-attitude. So that is the cause of the resultant liberation. No other cause can bring peace. No, there's no other means by which you can reach liberation. Also, the Bodhisattva section of Bodhisattva Pitaka Sutra says, those who haven't heard these various teachings of the Bodhisattva collections and have also not heard the implemented teachings on monastic discipline, who think that single-pointed concentration alone is enough, will fall into the pit of arrogance due to pride. As such, they cannot gain complete release from rebirth, old age, sickness, death, misery, lamentation, suffering, mental unhappiness, and disturbances. Neither do they gain complete liberation from the cycle of 6 states of existence, nor from the heaps of suffering, mental and physical aggregates.
Keeping this in mind, the Tathagata has said, the hearing the teaching will help you gain liberation from old age. And so mainly that of the wisdom meditation, cultivating the wisdom of selflessness is the practice that we should do. And so by staying focused single-pointedly with the help of the calm abiding, when you do analysis and then you gain insight into the nature of things, that is that of the vipassana. So in order to develop this single-pointed concentration, the calm abiding, you need to develop this pliancy of body and mind as well. The bliss of pliancy of mind and bliss. So for these reasons, those who wish to attain the thoroughly purified transcendental wisdom by eliminating all obscurations should meditate on wisdom while remaining in calm abiding meditation. It says, so here, a heap of jewels, Sutra says, in order to attain liberation, there are the three-fold practices of trainings. So the three Pitaka are the Vinaya, Abhidhamma, and Sutra. And so Vinaya mainly teaches us that of the morality, then training of morality, and then sutras teach us that of concentration training, and then Abhidhamma, that of the wisdom. So single-point concentration is achieved by adhering to moral ethics. With the achievement of single-point concentration, you meditate on wisdom. Wisdom helps you to attain a pure, pristine awareness. Through pure, pristine awareness, your moral contact is perfect. It's the meditation on faith in Mahayana. Sutra says, O child, of noble family, if you do not abide by wisdom, you cannot say how you will have faith in the Mahayana of the Bodhisattvas and how you will set forth in the Mahayana. O child of noble family, you should know that this is because Bodhisattva's faith in the Mahayana and setting forth in the Mahayana occurs as a result of contemplating the perfect Dharma in reality with a mind free from abstraction. And then the next paragraph shows that you should actually develop both the calm abiding and the special insight. Since clarity, pristine awareness will be absent, these two, special insight and calm abiding, should be cultivated. So if you actually have to alternate between the meditative state and the post-meditation stage, I mean, it may not be so powerful to serve others, but because the Buddhas are, I mean, in the state of Buddhahood, there is both these two merged together. It is powerful state to serve others. So the Moon Lamp Sutra says, by the force of calm abiding meditation, the mind will become unwavering, and especially inside it will, and with special insight, it will become a mountain. Therefore, maintain the yogic practice of them both. So this is also talking about combination of both calm abiding insight. So in the West, there is so much talk of meditation. So within meditation, there is the calm abiding meditation, the tranquil abiding meditation. But in the West, it seems that people are more interested in this kind of meditation and not so much in the analytical one. So I have a friend who has meditated for many years. And by meditating on non-thoughtlessness, he found that he was able to stay in meditation for quite well. But after doing that practice, he found that his mind to have become duller than before. so that he lost this faculty of doing any kind of scrutiny, critical analysis into the things. So in Chinese tradition, there are, of course, meditators who do this kind of thoughtlessness meditation. Because of this focusing meditation alone, it seems it hampers that of the critical faculty. So, in other words, we should be able to make transformation through analytical meditation, and it can real transformation cannot come merely through focusing, single-pointed concentration alone. So, from my own experience, I can tell that the understanding and insight into selflessness, must come through analysis, critical analytical meditation, and not just through single-pointed concentration. So common prerequisites and so forth. Initially, the yogi should seek the prerequisites that can assist him in actualizing karma, abiding meditation, and special insight quickly and easily. So these qualities that you build in your mind has to come through causes and conditions, and therefore this text talks about the prerequisites for meditation, karma, abiding, special insight. The prerequisites necessary for the development of karma, abiding meditation are to live in a conducive environment, to limit your desires and practice contentment, not to be involved in too many activities, to maintain pure moral ethics, and to fully eliminate attachment and all other kinds of conceptual thought. A conducive environment should be known by 5 characteristics: providing easy access to food and clothes, being free of evil beings and enemies, being free from diseases, containing good friends who maintain moral ethics and who share similar views, and being visited by few people in the daytime and with little noise at night. Limiting your desires refers not to being excessively attached to many or good clothes, such as religious robes and so forth. The practice of contentment means always being satisfied with any little thing, like inferior religious robes and so forth. So there are 12 qualities that are acquired by the monks. So there have been practitioners, Tibetan practitioners in India, who lived in the forest without any roof, under trees. So, of course, he passed away. So this person was someone who actually had this quality of meditating under trees. Of the 12 qualities that monastics can acquire, not being involved in many activities refers to giving up ordinary activities like business, avoiding too close association with householders and monks, and totally abandoning the practice of medicine and astrology. So I've found Christian practitioners, Christian monks, very humble and living very simple lives. I find, compared to them, some Tibetan monks living quite luxurious life. So I've visited monasteries, Christian monasteries, nunneries, and they really have the practice of simplicity. And then there are also non-Buddhist practitioners who really go through penitence. So what is pure discipline? It is not to contravene the foundation of training, the 2 vows, together with the avoidance of misdeeds, whether natural or prescribed, and whenever you fail through lack of carefulness, to regret that lapse. So the 2 vows refers to the Pratimoksha and Bodhisattva vows. To regret that lapse swiftly, and to repair it according to teachings. Even in the case of a statement that the transgression of the hearer's vows cannot be restored, if there is regret and an awareness of the intention not to repeat it, and an awareness of the lack of true identity of mind that performs the action, or familiarity with the lack of true identity of all phenomena, that person's morality can be said to be pure. This should be understood from the Sutra of Elimination of Ajatashatru's regret. You should overcome your regret and make special effort in meditation, being mindful of the various defects of attachment in this life and future lives helps eliminate conceptions. In this regard, some common features of both beautiful and ugly things in the cycle of existence are that they are all unstable and subject to disintegration. It is beyond doubt that you will be separated from all these things without delay. So meditate on why you should you should be so excessively attached to these. So this is about the prerequisites of the calm abiding. So with regard to the 16 characteristics, there's impermanence, which is a moment-by-moment change, the subtle, and then selflessness and so forth. You should gain insight into them through analytical meditation. And so in order to be able to do that, you need really to have done good study of the teachings. And therefore, it says what are the prerequisites, especially inside? They are to rely on holy persons, to seek seriously extensive instructions, and to contemplate properly. What type of holy person should you rely on? So with regard to the teacher whom you rely on, as I mentioned yesterday, you should have a teacher who has the 10 qualifications. So one who has heard many, who expresses himself clearly, who is endowed with compassion and able to withstand hardship. What is meant by seriously seeking extensive instructions? This is to listen seriously with respect to the definitive and interpretable meaning of the 12 branches of the Buddha's teachings. The Unraveling Thought Sutra says, not listening to superior teachings, beings teaching as you wish, is an obstacle to special insight. The same sutra says special insight arises from its course correct view, which in turn arises from listening and contemplation. And so the Chittamatra and the school of philosophy above that talk about make distinction between interpretable and or provisional and definitive teachings of sutras. So this definitive and provisional can be interpreted in terms of the terms or the words used, and also in terms of the meaning. So those teachings, those sutras, which mainly teaches emptiness, are considered definitive and as their main content, and those sutras which teach those of the conventional teachings are mainly said to be those of the provisional ones. And then there are those which can be taken, the interpretation of the definitive and provisional in terms of the sutras, whether they can be taken literally or not. So the questions of Narayana says, through the experience of listening to teachings you gain wisdom, and with wisdom disturbing emotions are thoroughly pacified. What is meant by proper contemplation? It is properly establishing the definitive and interpretive sutras. When bodhisattvas are free of doubt, they can meditate single-pointedly. Otherwise, if doubt and indecision beset them, they will be like a man at a crossroad, uncertain of which path to follow. And yogis should at all times avoid fish, meat, and so forth. So here it talks about taking to being vegetarian. Many of the Chinese practitioners, Buddhist practitioners, are vegetarian and should eat with moderation and avoid foods that are not conducive to health. Thus, bodhisattvas who have assembled all the prerequisites for combining meditation and special insight should enter into meditation. When meditating, the yogi should first complete all the preparatory practices. He should go to the toilet and in the pleasant location free of disturbing noise, and he should think, I will deliver all sentient beings to the state of enlightenment. So this is talking about generating bodhicitta. Without this bodhicitta, you cannot create the causes for full enlightenment. As Tsongkhapa also mentioned, bodhicitta is the axial so the 5 limbs refer to the forehead, 2 hands, and 2 knees. So you need to touch these 5 parts of the body on the ground when you make prostration. And then there is also full body length prostration as well. So your palms should touch down on the floor. You cannot have touch the floor with a fist. But you need to touch your palms on the ground and then touch your forehead and your knees. So then you should manifest great compassion, the thoughts wishing to liberate all sentient beings, and pay homage to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in the 10 directions by touching the 5 limbs of his body to the ground. He should place an image of the Buddha Bodhisattva, such as in painting, in front of him, and some other places. He should make as many offerings and praises as he has. He should confess misdeeds and rejoice in the merits of all others. And so, when you do meditation, you should have the 8 these 8 features, having these 8 physical features. So your legs are in the cross-legged position, and then your spine straight, and your hands are on the right one on the left, and then you should also form a triangle with your thumb, and the thumbs are, the tip of the thumbs are at the point of level of the navel. And then you should straighten your spine, and your teeth should be left normal, ordinarily, and also lips normal, and the tip of the tongue touching upper palate. Because when you stay in meditation for long, you could drip saliva, and if the flow of the upward moving wind is too strong, then you could feel dry in your mouth. And your head should be slightly bent forward, and your head should not raise your face up in the space in the sky, because that gives rise to pride. And then your eyes should look at the tip of the nose. In some Dzogchen practice, there is a practice where you actually gaze in front of you, straight forward. And then in the Kala Chakra, there is also the focusing of the eye on the mid-eyebrow. But in general meditation, you actually gaze on the tip of your nose. So then you should sit in full lotus posture, Virachana, or the half lotus posture, or comfortable cushion. The eyes should not be too widely opened or too tightly closed. Let them focus on the tip of the nose. The body should not be bent forward or backward. Keep it straight and turn the attention inwards. The shoulders should rest in the national position, and the head should lean back, forward, or either side. The nose should be in line with the navel. The teeth and lips should rest in their natural state, with the tongue touching the upper palate. Breathe very gently and softly. So your breathing should not be too noisy, nor too slow, without laboring and without unevenness. Inhale and exhale naturally, slowly and unnoticeably. So when you do reflect like that, as if you don't feel the in and out breath, they flow slowly. Calm abiding, the practice of calm abiding meditation should be achieved first. Calm abiding is that mind which has overcome distraction to external objects and which spontaneously and continuously turns towards the object of meditation with bliss and pliancy. And then there is also the 9 rounds of breathing, purifying breathing. When you are too emotionally tossed, I mean, it will help. If you do this, then straighten your spine, everyone, please. And press your thumbs at the base of the ring fingers, and then form a fist. Put it on down on your knee with the fingers down. So press the base of the ring fingers and form a fist and put it down on, and then pull it up your body and from the chest forward, push it forward, and then move to the right and touch the left armpit with your right fist.
Other side. Right hand, go like that. Oh, okay. Now, like this.
And then with your left index finger, press the right nostril and inhale. Exhale from the right nostril. Once more. You are doing wrong.
Now again like this.
And then again, pull up from the knee and left hand under the right armpit, and with the right index finger, press your left nostril. Inhale. So we have breathed 6 times.
Now like,
Have formed the fist with the thumbs pressing the base of your ring finger, and now you breathe in from both the nostrils and breathe out from your mouth. So when you inhale, feel your lungs being filled, fully filled, and then press your belly in and then breathe out from your mouth. So in this way, you can do this 9 round of breathing for purification. So you breathe in from the right nostril, and then that goes to the Rasana and comes out from the Lalana, and then the opposite direction 3 times again, and then from both the nostrils, from both the Lalana and Rasana, and then coming out from your mouth. So that which probably examines suchness from within the state of calm abiding, especially inside. The Cloud of Jewel Sutra reads, calm abiding meditation is single-pointed, especially inside, makes specific analysis of ultimate. Also, from the unraveling of Thought Sutra, Maitreya, O Buddha, how should people thoroughly search for calm abiding meditation and gain expertise, especially insight? The Buddha answered, Maitreya, I have given the following teaching to the Bodhisattva sutras, melodious sutras, prophetic teachings, verses, specific instructions, advice from specific experience, expression of realization, legends, birth tales, extensive teachings, established doctrine, and instructions. Bodhisattvas should properly listen to these teachings, remember their contents, train in verbal recitation, and thoroughly examine them mentally. When, with perfect comprehension, they should go alone to remote areas and reflect on these teachings and continue to focus in their minds upon them. They should focus mentally on those topics that they have reflected upon about and maintain this continuously. That is called mental engagement. When the mind has been repeatedly engaged in this way, in physical and mental pliancy have been achieved, that mind is called calm abiding. This is how Bodhisattvas properly seek the calm abiding mind. When the Bodhisattvas has achieved physical and mental pliancy and abides only, and then he eliminates mental distraction. So for single-pointed concentration, you can have external objects as focus, but you are not looking at the object with your sensorial perceptions, but with your mind. So even if you may use some objects like a flower, an external flower object, you need to have a very clear image of it in your mind, very clear picture of it, so that you have a very clear, a generic image of the flower in the mind, in your mind, and that image that you form in your mind of the flower is used as the focus of your meditation. And so in this way, you can use this focus to develop single-pointed concentration. And then there are other objects, such as using different syllables and seeds, and also when you do practice bindu, do practice of bindu, and so forth, you could have this the drops as your focus, and then single-pointed concentration or calm abiding meditation could also be done focusing on your mind without using any other objects as your focus. And so you just focus on your mind without distracting your mind, letting it stray to past experiences and not anticipating things to come in the future, not letting your mind stray to those to come in the future. And so you stop the past memories and then also anticipation of the future events. And then, of course, your mind should not also follow the sensorial perceptions like eye and nose and so forth, but just focus on the present moment of the mind itself. So at this moment, of course, our mind are more or less veiled by these the sensorial experiences, faculties, and the objects. So when you do this meditation, focusing on mind, you will see some kind of a vacuum, some kind of a vacuity in your mind. That is not the nature of mind as such, but the nature of mind is just that mere experience, having clarity and awareness. So when you are able to focus on that, you will have some experience of it. So that is when you are able to identify or recognize the conventional nature of the mind. And then using that as the object, then when you check where the mind has come from, where does it go, and where does it abide, So you still, I mean, you are doing some kind of analysis into the ultimate nature, and this is different from checking the ultimate nature of the external objects. So when in Dzogchen and Mahamudra practices, this is how the practitioners practice. So generally, when you initially do meditation as a Buddhist, you use the an image of the Buddha, maybe about in 3 or 2 inches, maybe in height, and then this should be focused somewhere at a distance. When you actually do some prostration, your hands, length of your hands could reach to that kind of a distance. And when if the image is bright, then an image of the Buddha is shining. It could help in not in that of the mental dullness or sinking. And then if it's heavy, it could help in overcoming that of the distraction. And then the next one is for to overcome your dullness. No, excitement. So in the King of Concentration Sutra, with his body golden color, the Lord of the universe is extremely beautiful. The Bodhisattva who places his mind on this object is referred to as so forth. So not only should you be able to focus your mind on the object, but the mind should not be tainted by or those of the mental excitement and mental dullness or laxity. So mental excitement is some form of attachment. So even if you are may not have that kind of attachment, but still, if you let your mind distract, even if it may be on some virtuous object, you should not let it stray to those as well. And so even if you may have some very clear image of the object in your mind, but you may not have some kind of intensity of that clarity, alertness, and then that of the mental laxity may be forming. So you should always check whether the mind is led astray by excitement, mental excitement, and that of the mental dullness or laxity. So when your mind is rather dull and there is some kind of a cloudiness in the mind, you need to actually use things. In order to come out of that state of mind, you need to have objects that delights your mind. So when your mind is too elated, then you will fall into that of mental excitement and distraction. So you need to make it more somber. And when the mind is too low, spirited, then you will have that of mental laxity. So having gone through this process of developing single-pointed concentration, then you come to a point where the mind is in equilibrium state without distraction or excitement and that of dullness. And then when you do, at that stage, some kind of analysis and thinking that that may be a fault, you are overdoing the meditation. So when you are able to stay single-pointedly focused for about 3 hours, and that helps to develop that of the physical and mental pliancy as well. So actualizing special insight now. After realizing calm abiding, meditator on special insight, thinking as follows: all the teachings of the Buddha are perfect teachings, and they directly or indirectly reveal and lead to suchness with utmost clarity. So impermanent nature or aspect of suffering or true suffering. And so forth are those which actually lead to that of the that of the insight into emptiness. And Bodhichitta also could be part of that. And then the gross understanding of emptiness actually is said to be approaching that of the suchness. And then you actually have the teachings of the emptiness, which actually reach that suchness. After realizing calm abiding, meditate on special insight, thinking as follows: all the teachings of the Buddha are perfect teachings, and they directly or indirectly reveal and lead to suchness with the utmost clarity. If you understand suchness, you will be free of all the nets of wrong views, just as darkness is dispelled when light appears. Mere calm abiding meditation cannot purify pristine awareness, nor can it eliminate the darkness of obscurations. So what is suchness? It is the nature of all phenomena, that ultimately they are empty of self, of persons and self of phenomena. And so with regard to this, of course, followers of the Master Nagarjuna, within those of the Madhyamaka tradition, there are those who assert objective existence in things, and those who reject any objective existence in things. And Master Viveka and so others of the first group actually assert also with regard to logic as Savatantra logic. So they say that if things were to have some kind of a unique, their own unique existence without being designated, then that is said to be the object of negation. So Master Viveka, if you compare Master Viveka's writings and the Prasanapada by Chandrakirti, you will actually see this difference between the two Madhyamakas. And one says that the object of negation, when demonstrating or proving emptiness, does not appear to the sensory perception, and the group says that it does appear. And so those who the Bhaviveka and so forth are those who say it does not appear. So Master Kamalashila also wrote Lamp of the Madhyamaka. He was a follower of the Savatantrika Madhyamaka sub-school of Madhyamaka, and also Bhaviveka and Buddha Palita and the Prasanapada do not assert any objective existence in things. So it says here, it is the nature of all phenomena that ultimately they are empty of self of persons and self of phenomena. And therefore, this term ultimate was where his Holiness was commenting to differentiate between these two. And this is realized through the perfection of wisdom and not otherwise. The unraveling of Sutra reads, so in the Heart Sutra also it says that 5 aggregates also must be seen as having no intrinsic existence, and in the other Panchaparamita Sutras there's this mention that things have no essential existence. So what actually it says, O Tathagata, by which perfection do bodhisattvas apprehend the identitylessness of phenomena? Avalokiteshvara, it is apprehended by the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, meditate on wisdom while engaging in abiding. Yogis should analyze in the following manner. A person is not observed as separate from the mental and physical aggregates, the elements, and the sense powers. So in the 72nd chapter of Mula Madhyamaka Karika, Master Nagarjuna says it's not neither one with the aggregates nor separate from the aggregates. It is not in the aggregates nor the aggregates are in it. And Tathagata is not does not possess the aggregates. So the Tathagata is not one with the aggregates, his aggregates, nor different or separate from him and them. So the Tathagata is not within the aggregates, nor the Tathagata, though the aggregates within the Tathagata, and the Tathagata does not possess the aggregates. And so I use this verse, and then it says, what is the Tathagata? Who is the Tathagata? And so I use this verse and switch the word Tathagata to oneself, who I do not exist. I'm not one with the body, aggregates, nor separate from the aggregates. I'm not in the aggregates, nor the aggregates are in me. I do not possess the aggregates. Then who am I? So the person like myself, I can say, does not have any intrinsic existence as one with the aggregates. And therefore, Master Nagarjuna also says that a person is not the elements like the earth, fire, wind, and fire and consciousness, space. So that the person is designated on the combination of these the 6 elements, and therefore a person does not exist ultimately or intrinsically. So a person cannot be found from within or amongst the aggregates themselves. Nor a person of the nature of aggregates and so forth, because the aggregates and so forth have the entity of being many and impermanent. Others have imputed the person as permanent and single. So this refers to non-Buddhist traditions asserting the permanent, single, and autonomous person or being. The person as a phenomenon cannot exist except as one or many, because there is no other way of existing. And therefore, we must conclude that the assertion of worldly I and mine is wholly mistaken. And so this is up to here. We are talking about the selflessness of persons. And Master Nagarjuna says, as long as there is clinging to the aggregates, there is the clinging to a person, self of a person. And therefore, in order to realize the subtle emptiness, you should be able to refute that of the self of a person, a self of a phenomena, in order to be able to realize self of persons fully. So things could be divided into two groups. One is the persons or beings who are the appropriators, users or utilizers of things, and then those things which are appropriated. And so, of course, anything, as soon as it comes into being, is empty of any essential existence in and of themselves. So here, when we talk about selflessness phenomena, it refers to the things other than the beings. So here this text belongs to that of the Savatantrika, Yogacara Savatantrika Madhyamaka, which accepts external, it rejects any external existence. So this is similar to quantum physics. It says this is because when they are broken into subtle particles and nature of the parts of these subparticles is individually examined, no definite identity can be found. Therefore, due to grasping, so that was where His Holiness was commenting, and therefore, due to grasping tightly and incorrectly at such things as form and so forth over beginningless time, the mind itself appears to ordinary people as form and so forth, and separate, external, just like the appearance of form and so forth that are perceived in a dream. And so here, as Yogacara Madhyamaka is rejecting any externality in things. Therefore, they say that things appear to have this external existence because of our habituation with that kind of notion, and the objects exist as a reflection of the perceptions. That in the ultimate sense, form and so forth do not exist separately from being, as an aspect of mind should be analyzed. And so, because this tradition belongs to Madhyamaka's school, here not only the ultimate existence of external phenomena is rejected, but also ultimate existence of the mind is rejected as well. So in the ultimate sense, the mind too cannot be real. How can the mind that apprehends only the false nature of physical form and so forth and appears in various aspects be real, just as physical form and so forth are false, since the mind does not exist separately from physical forms and so forth, which are false, it too is false. Just as physical forms and so forth possess various aspects and their identities are neither one nor many, similarly, since the mind is not different from them, its identity too is neither one nor many. Therefore, the mind by nature is like an illusion. analyze that, just like the mind, the nature of all phenomena too is like an illusion. In this way, when the identity of mind is specifically examined by wisdom, in the ultimate sense, it is perceived neither within nor without. It is also not perceived in the absence. Neither the mind of the past nor that of the future, nor that of the present and is perceived. When the mind is born, it comes from nowhere. So here, when it ceases, it goes nowhere. So here the analysis called the analysis into where the mind comes from, where it abides, and where it goes is done. So it is not in the above paragraph above that, when it says it is not perceived in the absence of both, neither the mind of the past nor is perceived, it means in the ultimate sense. What is the entity of that which is incomprehensible, indemonstrable, and non-physical? The heap of jewels states, O Kashyapa, when the mind is thoroughly sought, it cannot be found. What is not found cannot be perceived, and what is not perceived is neither past nor future nor present. Through such analysis, the beginning of the mind is ultimately not seen, and the end of mind is not ultimately not seen, and the middle of the mind is ultimately not seen. All phenomena should be understood as lacking an end or any end or and a middle. So next it goes through the teaching on of emptiness of emptiness. So the Buddha taught the selflessness of persons and selflessness of phenomena, and then this emptiness is divided into 2 and 4 and 16 and 20 and so forth. So there are different categorization of emptiness. When you use the emptiness itself of a thing as the subject on which you establish emptiness, I mean, you find that emptiness to be empty of any independent existence. So all phenomena should be understood as lacking an end in the middle, just as the mind does not have an end or middle. With the knowledge that the mind is without end and no identity of mind is perceived, what is thoroughly realized as by the mind too is realized as being empty. So with regard to objects, with regard to negations, there are those of the negations which are called the implicating and non-implicating negations. And so implicating negation means when you use certain term whereby that object, while rejecting something, it implies something else. And then non-implicating ones are you merely show the absence of something and in thing and do not imply anything else. So by analyzing about emptiness, usually what happens to us is things appear as if they have some kind of an independent existence. And from the point of view of the of Savatantrika Madhyamakas, things were to have some kind of an objective existence without relation to our perception. So that is the object of negation in relation to our emptiness. So whether it's the form and so forth, or your internal experiences, everything appears to us as if they have some objective existence. And so when you actually search for the identity, for the object itself, then you will not find anything as being this or that. And therefore, you come to the conclusion that things cannot be found in the objects that are designated as so and so within themselves. So As it happened in the Samye monastery, there were some Chinese meditators who meditated on thoughtlessness, and this was rejected and refuted by Kamalashila. Without the light of wisdom, you cannot realize the suchness. Those who do not meditate with wisdom by analyzing the entity of things specifically, but merely meditate on the elimination of mental activity, cannot avert conceptual thoughts and also cannot realize identityless because of lack of light of wisdom. And then the next paragraph, and then it says, the cloud of jewel also states, so now the part that is missing from the book, such a practitioner is then called a meditator of supreme wisdom because by specifically, in English I mean, by specifically examining the identity of all things with wisdom, he has perceived nothing. This is as stated in the Space Treasure Sutra and the Jewel in the Crown Sutra and so forth. In this way, by entering into the suchness of the selflessness of persons and phenomena, you are free of concepts and analysis. Because there is nothing to be thoroughly examined and observed, you are free from expression, and with single-pointed mental engagement, you automatically enter into meditation without exertion. Thus, you very clearly meditate on suchness and abide in it. While abiding in the meditation, the continuity of the mind should not be distracted. When the mind is distracted to external objects due to attachments and so forth, such distraction should be noted. Quickly pacify the distraction by meditating on the repulsive nature of aspect of such object and swiftly replace the mind on suchness. If the mind appears to be disinclined to that, to do that, reflecting on the advantage of single-pointed concentration, meditating with the light. The disinclination should be specified by also seeing the defects of this distraction. If the function of the mind becomes unclear and starts sinking, and when there is a risk of it sinking due to being overpowered by mental torpor or sleep, then, as before, quickly attempt to overcome such dullness by focusing the mind on supremely delightful things. Then the object, suchness, should be held in very tight focus at a time when the mind is observed to be excited or tempted to become distracted by memory of the past, even slut of laughter and play. Then, as in the earlier cases, pacify the distraction by reflecting on such things as impermanence and so forth, which will help you subdue the mind. Then again, endeavor to engage the mind on suchness without applying counter forces. I'm waking you up from your sleep. So if and when the mind spontaneously engage in meditation such as free from sinking and mental agitation, it should be left naturally and your efforts should be relaxed. If the effort is... So during the meditation on emptiness, you are actually doing the meditation which is called a space-like absorption. And after coming out of that meditation, things will appear to have some kind of an objective, existence in and of themselves. And from your meditative experience, what you can actually confirm is that they do not exist that way. And therefore, though they appear that way, they lack that reality. And therefore, you see things to be illusory. So, unifying the method and wisdom, when both are equally engaged, keep still effortlessly and so forth, and then go down to the descent into Lanka Sutra. Then if you wish to arise from the concentration while your legs are still crossed, think as follows. Although ultimately all these phenomena lack identity, conventionally they definitely exist. If this were not the case, how would the relationship between cause and effect and so forth prevail? The Buddha has also said things are produced conventionally. And so this text talks about the understanding and insight into the view of emptiness, helping to develop that of bodhicitta. So if you therefore engage in conscious effort to actualize the accumulation of merit and insight by practicing generosity and so forth, which are endowed with the essence of emptiness and the great compassion. If you act thus, your meditative stabilization will actualize that emptiness, actualize that emptiness and possess the best of all qualities. The jewel in the Crown Sutra states, donning the armor of loving kindness while abiding the state of great compassion, practice meditative stabilization actualizes the emptiness, possessing the best of all qualities. What is the emptiness possessing? The best of all qualities. It is that which is not divorced from generosity, ethics, patience, effort, meditative stabilization, wisdom, and skillful means. Bodhisattvas must rely on virtuous practices like generosity as means to thoroughly ripen all sentient beings and in order to perfect the place, body, and manifold retinue. If it were not so, what would be the causes of these filths, the filths of Buddhas and so forth that the Buddha spoke about? The omniscient wisdom possessing the best of all qualities or aspects can be accomplished through generosity and other skillful means. Therefore, the Buddha has said that omniscient wisdom is perfected by skillful means. Therefore, bodhisattvas should also cultivate generosity and other skillful means, and not only emptiness. The extensive collection of all quality sutras also says, O Maitreya, Bodhisattva thoroughly accomplished six perfections in order to attain the final fruit of Buddhahood. But to this, the foolish respond, Bodhisattvas should train only in the perfection of wisdom. What is the need for the rest of the perfections? They repudiate the other perfections. Maitreya, what do you think of this? When the king of Kashi offered his flesh to the hawk for the sake of pigeon, was it a corruption of wisdom? Maitreya replied, this is not. So next. So if you lack bodhicitta, then when you have bodhicitta, it helps to avoid the extreme of peace of liberation. When you lack that of the, when you have the wisdom of emptiness, it helps to avoid the extreme of samsara. So the Buddha said, Maitreya, Bodhisattvas accumulate the roots of merit through this. Their deeds in conjunction with this perfection. Are these roots of merit harmful? O Buddha, this is not, Maitreya replied, O Buddha, this is not so. The Buddha further spoke, Maitreya, you have also correctly practiced the perfection of generosity for 60 eons, the perfection of ethics for 60 eons, the perfection of patience for 60 eons, the perfection of enthusiastic perseverance for 60 eons. The perfection of meditative civilization for 16 eons, the perfection of wisdom for 16 eons. To this, the foolish respond, there is only one way to attain Buddhahood, and that is the way of emptiness. Their practice is completely mistaken. The Bodhisattva possessing wisdom, but not skillful means, would be like hearers who are unable to engage in the deeds of Buddhas, but they cannot do so when supported by skillful means, as the heap of jewels says. So the Bodhisattva's path consists of wisdom and skillful means, and therefore they attain the non-abiding nirvana. Because of the power of wisdom, they do not fall into the cycle of existence, and due to power of skillful means, they do not fall to nirvana. The Hill of Gaya Head Sutra says the Bodhisattva path, in short, is twofold. The two are skillful means and wisdom. The first among the supreme and glorious also says the perfection of wisdom is the mother and expertise in skillful means is the father. The teaching of Vimalakirti also says what is bondage for bodhisattvas and what is liberation. Upholding a life in cycle of existence devoid of skillful means is bondage for bodhisattvas, but to lead a life in the cycle of existence with skillful means is liberation. Upholding a life in the cycle of existence devoid of wisdom is bondage for bodhisattvas. And so this shows that the method and wisdom must go together, hand in hand, without one divorcing from the other. If a bodhisattva cultivates mere wisdom, he falls to nirvana desired by hearers. Thus, it is like a bondage, and he cannot achieve non-abiding nirvana. So, wisdom separated from skillful means is bondage for bodhisattvas. Therefore, just as a person chilled by the wind seeks the comfort of fire, so a bodhisattva cultivated the wisdom of emptiness along with skillful means to eliminate the wind of wrong views. But he does not endeavor to actualize it as the hearers do. The 10 Qualities Sutra says, O son of good family, it is like this. For instance, a person who is thoroughly devoted to fire, who respects it and regards to it as guru will not think. Because I respect, honor, and venerate fire, I should hold in this it in both hands. So, of course, the skillful means and the methods cannot come in one and called simultaneously, but the bodhisattvas must always combine them. So we are talking about the path system that you tread along, the transcendent and the worldly path. So the sutra this is cultivating the tantra. So moreover, this is the path of bodhisattvas. So while you are meditating on the transcendental wisdom, or while you are in a deep meditative absorption, you cannot engage in skillful means such as practicing generosity, but skillful means can be cultivated along with wisdom during the preparatory and post-meditative periods. That is the way to engage in wisdom and skillful means simultaneously. Moreover, this is the path of Bodhisattvas in which they engage in an integrated practice of wisdom and skillful means. This is cultivating the transcendental path that is thoroughly imbued with great compassion, focusing on all sentient beings, and while practicing skillful means, after rising from meditative absorption, you practice generosity and other skillful means without misconception, like a magician. The teaching of the Actualizing Sutra says what is a bodhisattva's skillful means and what wisdom is actualized. What wisdom is actualized? The bodhisattva's skillful means of thinking and placing the mind closely on sentient beings with great compassion while meditative absorption. In meditative absorption and engaging in meditative equipoise with peace and extreme peace is wisdom. There are many more such references. The chapter on controlling evil forces also says. Furthermore, the perfect activities of bodhisattvas refer to conscious efforts by the mind of wisdom and the recollection of all meritorious dharma by skillful means. Mind of skillful means. The mind of wisdom also leads to selflessness, the non-existence of inherent existence of beings, and of life, sustenance, and the person, and the mind of skillful means leads to thoroughly ripening all sentient beings. And then the extensive collection of all qualities sutras, and then next verse, next paragraph says, it is because of bodhisattvas practice wisdom and skillful means, it is said, in their activities they remain in the cycle of existence because of their thought. Because in their thought they abide in nirvana. In this way, become familiar with generosity and other skillful means that are dedicated to unsurpassable, perfectly accomplished enlightenment, having the essence of meditation. So by treading along the path, by developing this path, you reach this path of accumulation, path of application, path of seeing, and so the one who is on the first ground of bodhisattvas So next comes that of the achieving or actualizing the resultant stage. And so first you develop the wisdom realizing emptiness, and with the help of which you develop that of the Bodhichitta, and then engage in the Bodhisattva practices of the six perfections. So this sequence is for those with sharper faculty. For those with the duller faculty, the sequence is different. And then, in this way, a person who has entered the first level later on the path of meditation familiarizes himself with the two wisdoms, transcendent and so forth. So entering the oceans. So the Buddha has said the omniscient transcendental wisdom is produced with compassion as its root, the awakening mind of Bodhichitta as its cause, and is perfected by skillful means. The wise distance themselves from jealousy and other stains. Whatever merit I derive, but with exposition of this middle path, I dedicate for all beings to actualize the middle path. The second part of the stages of meditation by Acharya Kamalashila is here completed, translated and edited by into Tibetan by the Indian abbot Prangya Verma and the Tibetan monk Yeshide. So I need also to complete the other text, the Song of Experience. So verse number 21 is done. And 23, verse number 23 down, which teaches the perfection of giving, and then morality, perfection of morality on verse number 25 and 26, then morality of patience, 27 and 28, morality of joyous effort, and then morality of concentration. Concentration is the king that reigns over the mind. When left, it is as unwavering as the king of mountains. When set forth, it engages with all objects of virtue. It induces the great bliss of serviceable body and mind. And then, knowing this, the great accomplished yogis constantly apply meditation to destroying the enemy of destruction and so forth. And then wisdom is the eye that sees the profound suchness. It's the path eradicating cyclic existence from its very root, which means the root of cyclic existence is that of clinging to, grasping at true existence in things. And it's the treasury of high qualities that are praised by all scriptures. And it's known as the Supreme Lamp, dispelling the darkness of delusion and so forth. In a mere one-pointed concentration, I fail to see the potency that cut the root of cyclic existence. And yet, with wisdom devoid of path of tranquil abiding, no matter how much one may probe, afflictions will not be overcome. And so, the middle way view of the yoga, Savatantrika Madhyamakas could help to reduce the intensity of our grasping at the true existence in things, independent existence in things, but it will not uproot that clinging to true existence. So in order to be able to destroy all objectification, we need to develop the view of the Prasangika Madhyamaka. So with the wisdom distinctly penetrating the true mode of being, the learned ones settle it's astride the horse of unwavering calm abiding. And with the sharp weapon reasoning, middle way from extremes, they dismantle the locus of objectification of the mind grasping at extremes. With such expansive wisdom that probes with precision, the learned ones enhance the wisdom realizing suchness. And then I, a yogi, have practiced in this way, and you who aspire to liberation, too should do this. What need is there, and so forth. So as Tsongkhapa says, that one should study impartially the great writings of these masters called the 6 ornaments. and to supreme ones. And so his writings are marvelous. He could actually compare and contrast the different assertions, different ideas of different masters, and then make conclusions. So having understood the path of the general approach of the teaching of the Buddha, and also having gained conviction through reflection on the teaching and over again, then you should meditate, go into meditation. And having done that, having gone through these three processes of developing deeper insight and understanding of the teaching, then you enter into the tantric path. Thus, having cultivated as they are the common path, essential for the two supreme paths of causal and resultant great vehicles, I have entered the great ocean of tantras by relying upon the leadership of the learned navigators and so forth. And this teaching is completed. Tomorrow, hitting the essence or the core, hardcore, in 3 words will be given, which is from the Dzogchen teaching. So there are about 600 people. You don't need to be secret about it. So those who are interested could also come. So around 9:30, I'll leave the hotel, and by 11:30 we will finish the teaching, and in the evening we'll have public talk. Afternoon, sorry, public talk. I dedicate all these roots of virtues with dedication praised. No, just as the brave Manjushri and Samantabhadra to realize things as they are, also I dedicate all these merits as the best way that I may follow these perfect examples. I dedicate all these roots of virtue with the dedication praised as the best by the virtuous ones, thus gone for 3 times, so that I may perform noble Bodhisattva deeds.